I stood alone in my beautifully decorated new apartment at 8 p.m., surrounded by untouched food platters and champagne bottles. My entire family had abandoned my housewarming party to attend my golden child brother, Derek's surprise apartment celebration across town. As I fought back tears and reached for the light switch, my phone buzzed with an urgent text from my mother. "We need to talk now." The message sent chills down my spine because I recognized this tone from childhood. It always preceded devastating family revelations that would change everything forever. Growing up as the middle child in a typical suburban Denver family, I learned early that attention was a limited resource, and Derek consumed most of it. While he received constant praise for mediocre achievements, my successes were met with polite acknowledgement before conversations shifted back to his needs. Through high school, I maintained a 3.8 GPA, while working part-time at the local coffee shop, saving every dollar for college. Derek barely graduated with a 2.5 average, but our parents celebrated like he'd earned valedictorian honors. College amplified this pattern. I worked 2 jobs while pursuing my marketing degree at Colorado State University, surviving on instant meals and secondhand textbooks. Meanwhile, Derek received full family funding for his fraternity lifestyle at Stanford, complete with spring break trips and a brand new BMW for his 21st birthday. When I graduated magna cum laude with 0 debt, the family dinner conversation focused entirely on Derek's upcoming MBA program and how proud everyone felt about his academic journey. After graduation, I moved back to Denver and landed a marketing coordinator position at a mid-sized tech company. The pay was decent, but I had bigger dreams. I wanted to live downtown in one of those converted warehouse lofts with floor-to-ceiling windows and exposed brick walls. For 3 years, I lived in a tiny studio apartment, eating homemade sandwiches for lunch and skipping social events to save money. Every bonus, every tax refund, every birthday check from relatives went straight into my apartment fund. Finally, last month, I had enough for the down payment on my dream place. The loft was everything I'd imagined: 1,200 square feet of open space with soaring ceilings, huge windows overlooking the city, and original brick walls that told stories of the building's industrial past. The modern kitchen featured granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, while the bathroom boasted a luxurious rainfall shower. I spent my first week there just sitting on the hardwood floors, hardly believing this space belonged to me. Planning the housewarming party became an obsession. I hired a caterer specializing in gourmet appetizers, bought 3 bottles of expensive champagne, and created a playlist mixing classic rock with modern indie songs. I even hired a professional photographer to capture the space at its best, thinking these photos would become treasured memories of my proudest achievement. The guest list included everyone important to me: my parents, Linda and Robert Derek, and his wife Jessica, my cousins Marcus and Tiffany, my Aunt Patricia, and my grandmother Helen. I designed beautiful digital invitations featuring photos of the apartment, sent them 2 weeks in advance, and followed up with personal phone calls. Everyone responded enthusiastically, promising to attend and celebrating my accomplishment. Saturday arrived with perfect October weather. I spent the morning arranging flowers, setting up the catered spread, and chilling the champagne. The photographer captured stunning shots of golden sunlight streaming through the windows, highlighting the elegant food presentation and cozy seating areas I'd created. Everything looked magazine perfect. 6 p.m. came and went with no arrivals. I checked my phone, constantly expecting texts about traffic delays or parking difficulties. By 6:30, I started calling people. My mother claimed she suddenly developed a migraine and couldn't drive. Derek said Jessica felt nauseous from her pregnancy and needed to rest. Marcus had a work emergency requiring immediate attention. Tiffany's car mysteriously broke down. Patricia discovered plumbing issues that demanded immediate repair. Grandmother Helen felt too exhausted after her physical therapy appointment. Each excuse sounded reasonable individually, but together they felt suspicious. I'd never experienced a complete no-show situation in my adult life. Family members might arrive late or leave early, but everyone canceling last minute seemed impossible. At 7:30, feeling completely defeated, I poured myself a glass of champagne and scrolled through social media to distract from my disappointment. That's when I saw Jessica's Instagram story posted just 20 minutes earlier. The video showed my entire family gathered in what looked like another apartment, laughing and raising their glasses in a toast. Derek appeared in the background, grinning while opening champagne. The timestamp showed 5:30 p.m., meaning they'd been celebrating elsewhere while I waited alone. My heart stopped as I recognized the space. The layout looked identical to my apartment, just with different furniture and decorations. Same exposed brick walls, same style of windows, same hardwood floors. Then I noticed the apartment number, visible in one photo, 807. I lived in apartment 805. Derek's new place was just 2 floors directly above mine in the same building. The realization hit like a physical blow. They hadn't canceled due to emergencies or sudden illnesses. They'd all lied to attend Derek's impromptu housewarming party instead of mine. While I'd been planning and preparing for weeks, Derek had apparently decided to host his own celebration on the exact same night in the exact same building, and somehow convinced our entire family to choose his event over mine. I sat on my beautiful hardwood floor surrounded by untouched gourmet food and unopened champagne, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. The apartment I'd worked so hard to afford suddenly felt like a monument to my family's indifference. Derek had effortlessly upstaged my biggest achievement without even trying, just like he'd been doing our entire lives. My hands shook as I dialed my mother's number, anger and hurt warring in my chest. She answered on the first ring, her voice crisp and businesslike, rather than the weak, migraine-affected tone from her earlier excuse. "Ava, I'm glad you called. We need to discuss something important." "You mean like why my entire family lied to me tonight?" I struggled to keep my voice steady. "I saw Jessica's Instagram. You're all at Derek's apartment." "Yes, we are." No apology, no explanation, just cold confirmation. "We came here because we needed to have a serious family conversation about Derek's future, and frankly, your situation fits perfectly into what we need to discuss." The casual way she dismissed my feelings made my chest tighten. My situation. "You mean my housewarming party that everyone promised to attend?" Derek has been offered a once-in-a-lifetime business opportunity that requires a $50,000 investment. The family has been discussing this for weeks, and we've reached a decision. You need to sell your apartment and give Derek the money. The words hit me like ice water. Are you completely insane? I just bought this place. I saved for 3 years. Derek has a Stanford MBA, Ava. Your state school degree was adequate, but Derek has the credentials and vision to make this investment multiply. He's our family's best chance at real financial success. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Derek's previous business ventures all failed spectacularly. Remember his organic dog treat company, his cryptocurrency consulting service, his drop shipping business that lasted exactly 3 months. Those were learning experiences. This opportunity is different. Derek's business partner has connections throughout Silicon Valley. They're developing an app that could revolutionize social media marketing. The profit potential is enormous. And you want me to fund this with my apartment? Jessica is pregnant Ava. Derek has responsibilities now. He needs financial stability to provide for his growing family. You're unmarried with no children. Your responsibilities are minimal compared to his. The logic made me physically sick. So because I'm single, my dreams matter less than his. It's not about dreams mattering less. It's about family priorities. Derek's success benefits everyone. If this business takes off, he'll be able to support all of us. Your apartment benefits only you. My apartment that I worked 60 hours a week to afford, that I sacrificed social life and vacations for. Sacrifice is exactly what family means, Ava. We all make sacrifices for each other. This is your turn to step up. I paced my empty living room, fury building with each step. What sacrifices has Derek made for anyone? When has he ever put family before his own interests? Derek's been under enormous pressure lately. Starting a family while building a career isn't easy. He needs our support, not criticism. What about my pressure? What about my career? What about supporting my achievements for once? Your achievements are wonderful, honey, but they're stable. You have a good job, a steady income. Derek's situation is more precarious and has higher potential rewards. The condescension in her voice made me want to scream. So I should give up everything I've worked for to fund Derek's latest get-rich-quick scheme. It's not a scheme. We've seen the business plan. Derek's partner graduated from Harvard Business School. They have meetings scheduled with venture capital firms. This is legitimate. Then why can't they get traditional investors? Why does Derek need family money? Because family believes in you when strangers won't take risks. This shows our confidence in Derek's abilities. What about confidence in my abilities? What about supporting my goals? Ava, you're being selfish. Family means thinking beyond yourself. Derek's success lifts all of us up. Your apartment only benefits you. The accusation of selfishness after years of family neglect felt like a slap. How long do I have to decide? Sunday evening. The business opportunity has a deadline and Derek needs to move quickly. If you don't commit by then, he'll lose this chance forever. And if I refuse, then you'll have to live with knowing you could have changed our family's entire future, but chose personal desires over family loyalty. Some decisions can't be undone, Ava. The threat was clear. Choose Derek or lose the family entirely. I need time to think. Of course, but don't take too long. Derek's depending on you. She hung up without saying goodbye, leaving me alone with the devastating realization that my family saw me as nothing more than a funding source for Derek's dreams. 3 years of sacrifice, months of planning the proudest moment of my adult life, all dismissed as selfishness because I wouldn't immediately liquidate my future for Derek's benefit. I walked to my floor-to-ceiling windows and stared out at the Denver skyline lights twinkling like stars. This view represented everything I'd worked toward: independence accomplishment proof that I could achieve my goals through determination and hard work. Now my family wanted me to trade it all away for Derek's unproven business venture, wrapped in guilt about family loyalty and sacrifice. The worst part was how normal this felt. Derek needing money, the family rallying to provide it, and me being expected to contribute more than anyone else while receiving less recognition than anyone else. The pattern that had defined my entire life, now threatening to destroy the one thing I'd built purely for myself. I opened one of the champagne bottles and poured a glass, toasting my empty apartment and the brutal lesson I'd just learned about my place in the family hierarchy. Some celebrations I realized you have to have alone. Saturday morning, I woke up determined to understand exactly what I was being asked to fund. If the family expected me to liquidate my biggest asset for Derek's business opportunity, I needed details beyond vague promises about Stanford credentials and Silicon Valley connections. I called my college friend Ryan, who worked as a financial analyst at Derek's consulting firm. We'd kept in touch over the years, occasionally meeting for coffee when our schedules aligned. Ryan had mentioned Derek several times, usually with subtle eye rolls about his work ethic and professional reliability. "Can we meet this morning? I need to ask you something about Derek's situation at work." Ryan's pause told me everything. "Yeah, we should definitely talk. How about that coffee shop on 16th Street in an hour?" I arrived early, ordering a large latte and claiming a corner table away from other customers. Ryan appeared 10 minutes later, looking uncomfortable and checking over his shoulder as he sat down. "Before you ask me anything, I need you to understand that what I'm about to tell you could get me in serious trouble if it gets back to the wrong people." My stomach dropped. "What's wrong?" "Derek was fired 3 weeks ago, Ava. Not laid off, not downsized, fired for cause. He was caught embezzling client funds." The coffee shop noise faded to a distant hum. Embezzling? $47,000 over 6 months. Small amounts from multiple accounts, thinking nobody would notice the pattern. Our auditing department caught it during the quarterly review. but he told the family about this amazing business opportunity, Silicon Valley Connections venture capital meetings. Ryan shook his head grimly. There's no business opportunity. Derek owes money to some very dangerous people, and he was stealing from clients to make payments. When we caught him, he begged us not to involve police. The company agreed to keep it quiet if he repays everything within 30 days. Dangerous people. Loan sharks. Derek's been gambling for over a year, apparently. Sports betting, cryptocurrency day trading, online poker. He borrowed $50,000 from illegal lenders to cover losses, convinced he could win it back quickly. When that failed, he started taking client money to avoid defaulting on the loan shark debt. Ryan pulled out his phone, showing me screenshots of text messages. Derek sent these to me last week, begging for help. I saved them because the whole situation scared me. I read Derek's messages, my horror growing with each desperate plea. Ryan, please, man, I'm running out of time. These people aren't playing games. They know where Jessica works. They've been calling the house at weird hours, hanging up when she answers. I found a note on my car yesterday. Just my full name and address written on paper left under the windshield wiper. No other message needed. The interest keeps growing. It's not 50 anymore, it's 68 and climbing. I need help now. They said next week they start collecting from family members. I can't let anything happen to Jessica or the baby. My parents don't know about any of this. I told them I found an investment opportunity. Please don't say anything. The final message was from 2 days ago. Family meeting tomorrow night. Going to convince Ava to sell her apartment. It's my only option left. I stared at the phone screen pieces of the puzzle falling into horrible place. He's been lying to everyone. The business partner he mentions doesn't exist. The venture capital meetings, complete fiction. He's created this entire fake opportunity story to manipulate your family into giving him money to pay off gambling debts. Does your company know about the loan sharks? We suspect, but Derek hasn't admitted it officially. We assume the stolen money went to personal expenses or addiction issues. We had no idea about actual threats. What happens if he doesn't repay the client funds? Criminal charges, felony theft wire fraud, possibly racketeering if the loan shark connection becomes official. Derek would face years in federal prison. I felt sick thinking about Jessica pregnant and unaware that her husband had put their entire family in danger. She doesn't know any of this. Derek swore he hasn't told her about the gambling or the job situation. She thinks he's still working normally and pursuing legitimate business opportunities. So my family is unknowingly helping him commit more fraud. Essentially, yes. If Derek gets money from you under false pretenses, that's another crime. And if he uses family money to pay illegal gambling debts, that could implicate all of you in money laundering charges. I sat back in my chair, overwhelmed by the scope of Derek's deception. My family wasn't just enabling his irresponsible behavior anymore. We were potentially becoming accessories to serious crimes. There's something else you should know, Ryan continued. Derek's been asking questions about your financial situation, your salary, your apartment value, your savings accounts. He's been researching your assets for weeks, maybe months. Researching my assets? He knows exactly how much your apartment is worth, what your monthly payments are, how much equity you have. This isn't a desperate last-minute plan. Derek's been systematically planning to use your financial stability to solve his crisis. The calculating nature of Derek's manipulation made me feel physically ill. While I'd been working and saving and celebrating small victories, my brother had been studying my finances like a predator, evaluating prey. The housewarming party that nobody attended wasn't just neglect. It was Derek ensuring the family's attention was focused on his needs instead of my achievements. What should I do? Honestly, stay as far away from this situation as possible. Derek's desperation is making him dangerous, and loan sharks don't care about collateral damage. If you give him money, you're just delaying an inevitable explosion that could destroy multiple lives. But if I don't help and something happens to Jessica or the baby, that's not your responsibility, Ava. Derek created this situation through lies and illegal activity. You can't fix it by sacrificing your own future. Ryan's words made sense logically, but emotionally I felt trapped. My family expected me to save Derek without understanding what I'd actually be saving him from. They thought they were supporting his business dreams, not enabling his criminal behavior and endangering everyone's safety. As I walked back to my apartment, I realized the housewarming party had been the least of my problems. Derek wasn't just the favored child demanding attention anymore. He was a desperate criminal willing to destroy anyone necessary to escape the consequences of his choices, and my family was helping him do it. Saturday evening, I sat in my apartment trying to decide how to handle Sunday's family meeting. Should I expose Derek's lies immediately or try to gather more evidence first? Should I warn Jessica about the loan shark threats or stay quiet to protect Ryan's job? My dilemma was interrupted by unexpected knocking at my door. Through the peephole, I saw Derek standing in the hallway with two men I didn't recognize. All three looked agitated, Derek appearing particularly nervous and sweaty despite the cool October weather. I opened the door cautiously, keeping the chain lock attached. "Derek, what are you doing here?" "Hey, Ava. Sorry to drop by unannounced, but I wanted to introduce you to my business partners. This is Tony and Mike. They're here to discuss the investment timeline we talked about earlier." Tony was a large man with expensive-looking gold jewelry and an ill-fitting suit. Mike was smaller but carried himself with the kind of coiled tension that suggested violence was always an option. Neither man looked like legitimate business people. "We heard you might be interested in Derek's opportunity." Tony said, his voice carrying a subtle accent I couldn't identify. "Mind if we come in and discuss the details?" Every instinct screamed danger, but Derek looked desperate enough to do something unpredictable if I refused. "I suppose we could talk briefly." I unlocked the chain and stepped back, immediately regretting the decision as the three men entered my space. Tony and Mike examined the apartment appraisingly, noting the expensive finishes and downtown location with obvious interest. "Nice place," Mike observed, walking to the windows and checking the view. "Must be worth quite a bit in this market." "Derek mentioned you might be willing to liquidate some assets to participate in our venture," Tony added, settling onto my couch without invitation. "Smart thinking. Real estate's good collateral, but business opportunities like ours offer much better returns." Derek remained standing near the door, fidgeting with his phone and avoiding eye contact. I explained to them about our family meeting tomorrow, how we're all committed to supporting each other's success. "Family support is important," Mike agreed now, examining my kitchen and taking notes on his phone. "Derek's told us a lot about your financial stability, your job situation. Sounds like you're in a good position to help make this deal happen." The casual way they discussed my personal information made my skin crawl. Derek shouldn't be sharing my financial details with strangers. "We're not strangers," Tony corrected, his tone hardening slightly. "We're business partners with a significant investment in Derek's future. When someone owes us money, their family becomes our concern too." The word "owes" hung in the air like a threat. These weren't business partners discussing investment opportunities. These were loan sharks collecting on Derek's gambling debts. Actually, Derek's been a little unrealistic about family cooperation. Mike continued photographing my apartment's layout and exits. "Seems to think everyone's just going to hand over their assets to help him out. We've had to explain that sometimes people need extra motivation to do the right thing." Derek's face had gone pale. "No, that's not necessary. Ava understands the situation. She'll do the right thing for family." "Will you?" Tony asked me directly. "Because Derek here owes us $68,000 as of today, and that number goes up every week he doesn't pay. We've been very patient, but patience has limits." "I don't know what Derek's told you, but I never agreed to anything," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is the first I'm hearing about any debt situation." "Debt situation?" Mike laughed humorlessly. "Is that what Derek called it? Lady, your brother borrowed 50 grand from us 6 months ago, promising to pay it back in 30 days. When that didn't happen, he put up collateral. Your apartment here is part of that collateral." My blood turned to ice. That's impossible. Derek doesn't have any legal claim to my property. "Legal and effective are different things," Tony explained patiently. Derek provided us with financial documents showing his family's assets, including this place. Property ownership can be transferred lots of ways, especially when families cooperate. Derek finally spoke up, his voice shaking. I just need until Monday, guys. The family meeting is tomorrow and everything will be resolved. Ava's going to help, aren't you, Ava? The desperation in his voice was painful to hear, but the threat these men represented was terrifying. Derek, I think you should leave. All of you should leave. We will... Tony agreed, standing slowly. But Derek needs to understand something. We've already invested considerable time and resources in his situation. We know where he lives, where his wife works, where his family members live. We know about the baby coming, about elderly relatives, about everyone Derek cares about. Mike held up his phone showing photos of Jessica leaving her office building, our grandmother Helen at her senior center, our parents at their grocery store. Beautiful family. Be a shame if Derek's poor decisions affected their safety. Derek looked like he might vomit. Please just give me until Monday. I swear I'll have the money. You'll have it because Ava here is going to provide it, Tony stated matter-of-factly. Right, Ava? Because family takes care of family, and Derek's family doesn't want anything unfortunate to happen due to his mistakes. I excused myself to the bathroom, hands trembling as I locked the door and called 911. I need police at my apartment immediately. 2 men are here making threats, possibly armed, definitely involved in illegal lending. The dispatcher kept me on the line while sending units to my building. I stayed in the bathroom until I heard sirens, then opened the door to find Derek and the loan sharks still in my living room, now looking alarmed as police footsteps echoed in the hallway. What did you do? Derek demanded. I called for help, which you should have done months ago instead of lying to everyone and putting our entire family in danger. Police knocked firmly. Denver police, open up. Tony and Mike exchanged looks before Tony opened the door, suddenly adopting a friendly, cooperative demeanor. Good evening, officers. Just having a business meeting. Ma'am, are you all right? One officer asked me. These men came to my apartment uninvited and made threats about my family's safety if I don't give them money for my brother's gambling debts. Derek started protesting, claiming the men were legitimate business partners, and this was all a misunderstanding. Tony and Mike insisted they were investors discussing Derek's business opportunity. But one officer recognized Tony from previous investigations, and Mike had outstanding warrants for intimidation and racketeering charges. Within minutes, both loan sharks were in handcuffs, while Derek continued frantically explaining that this would ruin everything. As police led the men away, Derek turned to me with genuine panic. You just destroyed my life, Ava. Jessica doesn't know about any of this. If this gets out, I lose everything. You already lost everything when you started gambling with money you didn't have and lying to people who care about you, I replied. The only question now is whether our family gets destroyed along with you or whether someone finally tells the truth and stops this before it gets worse. Derek was arrested for conspiracy and fraud while Tony and Mike faced multiple charges. As I gave my statement to police, I realized the housewarming party had been the least of my concerns. Derek's desperation had escalated far beyond family manipulation into genuinely dangerous criminal behavior that threatened everyone I loved. Sunday morning brought chaos. Derek's arrest made the local news because Tony's loan shark operation had connections to a larger criminal enterprise under federal investigation. My apartment building became a crime scene, with neighbors learning about the threats and illegal activities that had taken place in their supposedly safe downtown community. My phone rang at 7 a.m. with Linda's hysterical voice screaming before I could even say hello. How could you do this to your own brother Derek called from jail? And this is all your fault. You destroyed our family because you're too selfish to help when someone needs you. Mom, Derek's been lying to everyone. He lost his job, he's been stealing money, he's been gambling with loan sharks. None of this is about a business opportunity. I don't believe that for 1 second. Derek would never steal or gamble. You made up this story because you don't want to help him succeed. You've always been jealous of Derek's potential. The accusation hit like a slap. Jealous Derek brought criminals to my apartment and threatened our entire family. I saved us from something much worse. You called the police on your own brother. What kind of person does that? The kind who doesn't want to see Jessica and her baby hurt because Derek's too proud to admit he has a gambling addiction. Jessica's baby. Linda's voice grew even sharper. What does Jessica's baby have to do with anything? The loan sharks know where she works, Mom. They've been following her, leaving threatening notes. Derek put a pregnant woman in danger to cover his gambling debts. For the first time, Linda paused. That's not true. Derek would never put Jessica at risk. Call Ryan at Derek's company. Ask him about the embezzlement investigation. Ask him about the text messages Derek sent begging for help. I'm not calling anyone. You're going to fix this situation right now. You're going to drop whatever charges you filed, bail Derek out, and give him the money he needs to resolve this misunderstanding. Misunderstanding, Mom Derek forged documents to use my apartment as collateral for illegal loans. He committed identity theft and fraud against his own sister. Stop making up stories. Derek's a good person who made some mistakes under pressure. Family helps family during difficult times. Robert's voice came through the background, finally speaking up. Linda, maybe we should listen to what Ava's saying. I found casino receipts in Derek's car last month. His credit card bills have been enormous. You knew about gambling and didn't tell me, Linda demanded. I hoped it was just a phase. I didn't want to worry you, and Derek promised he'd stop. So you both knew Derek had problems, but you still expected me to fund his so-called business opportunity? I asked. Robert's voice grew defensive. We thought family money might help him get back on track. Sometimes people need support to break bad patterns. By enabling the bad patterns instead of addressing them, we were trying to help without making Derek feel attacked or judged, Robert explained. Gambling addiction is a disease. We can't just abandon him. Nobody's abandoning anyone, I replied. But I'm not funding criminal activity or putting myself in legal jeopardy because Derek won't face consequences for his choices. Linda's voice returned colder than before. If you don't fix this situation, Ava, you're dead to this family. We'll never speak to you again. Derek needs us now more than ever, and if you won't support him, you don't belong with us. So my choice is to sacrifice my financial security and legal safety for Derek's lies or lose my family entirely. Your choice is to act like family or admit you never really belonged with us anyway. The ultimatum crystallized everything wrong with our family dynamics. Derek's needs always came first. Everyone else was expected to accommodate his problems, and anyone who refused to enable his destructive behavior was labeled selfish and disloyal. What about the rest of the family? Do Marcus and Tiffany know Derek's been arrested? Does grandmother Helen know her house was nearly lost because Derek forged documents? Silence stretched before Robert answered quietly. What do you mean about Helen's house? Derek took out a second mortgage using forged documents. If I hadn't stopped, this grandmother would have lost her home to cover his gambling debts. That's impossible, Linda protested. Derek would never steal from his grandmother. Call Detective Sarah Collins at Denver PD. Ask her about the identity theft investigation. Derek's been forging family members' signatures on financial documents for over a year. Robert's voice grew shaky. Ava, are you saying Derek's been committing fraud against multiple family members? I'm saying Derek's gambling addiction escalated into systematic theft and fraud targeting everyone he could access. The loan sharks weren't after just Derek. They were after anyone whose identity he'd stolen to secure loans. The phone went quiet except for Linda's heavy breathing. Finally, Robert spoke again. We need to know the truth about everything Derek's been doing. If family members are at financial risk, we have to protect ourselves. Robert, you can't seriously believe Derek would steal from his own grandmother, Linda said, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. I believe Derek's addiction made him desperate enough to do things he normally wouldn't do, Robert replied. And if Ava's right about the scope of this problem, we need to act quickly to protect everyone. The conversation ended with Linda hanging up abruptly, but not before I heard her crying in the background. Robert called back 5 minutes later. "Ava, your mother's not ready to accept this yet, but I am. Tell me what we need to do to protect the family from Derek's actions." For the first time in my adult life, one of my parents was treating me like a capable person whose judgment mattered. It had taken a criminal investigation and arrest to achieve that recognition, but finally, someone was listening to what I had to say instead of dismissing my concerns as selfishness or jealousy. Monday morning, I met with Detective Sarah Collins at the Denver Police Department to review the evidence gathered from Derek's arrest and the loan shark investigation. What she showed me exceeded my worst fears about Derek's criminal activities. "Your brother's been busy," Detective Collins said, spreading documents across her desk. "We found these in Tony's office when we executed the search warrant." The papers showed Derek had forged my signature on multiple loan agreements using my apartment as collateral and my income as proof of repayment ability. If Derek had defaulted completely, I would have been legally responsible for $68,000 in debt, plus rapidly accumulating interest. How is this possible? I never signed anything. Derek had access to your personal information through family gatherings and visits. He photographed your financial documents, copied your signature from birthday cards and family letters, and created an elaborate identity theft scheme. The loan sharks believed you were Derek's silent business partner. Detective Collins showed me additional evidence that made my stomach turn. Derek had been forging family members' signatures on financial documents for over a year, systematically stealing from anyone he could access. Grandmother Helen's house had indeed been put up as collateral without her knowledge. Aunt Patricia's retirement account had been drained through fraudulent withdrawals Derek had made, using forged authorizations. We estimate Derek stole or fraudulently obtained over $120,000 from various family members and his employer. This wasn't just gambling addiction. This was a systematic criminal enterprise. What happens now? Derek's facing multiple felony charges: embezzlement, identity theft, wire fraud, conspiracy with organized crime figures. He's looking at significant prison time even with a plea bargain. The scope of Derek's betrayal was staggering, but Detective Collins had more devastating news. "There's something else you should know. We found evidence that Derek was preparing to escalate his identity theft operation. He'd collected financial information on several family friends and your co-workers. If this situation hadn't been stopped, Derek would have branched out beyond family victims." I thought about my colleagues at the marketing firm, people who'd celebrated my apartment purchase and trusted me with their personal information during casual conversations. Derek hadn't just betrayed family members. He'd been preparing to destroy the financial lives of innocent people who'd never even met him. "I want to press charges for everything Derek did to me and help you build the strongest possible case against him," I told Detective Collins. "That's smart. Derek's lawyer will probably try to negotiate reduced charges by claiming this was all addiction-driven behavior rather than calculated criminal activity. Your testimony about the systematic nature of his deception will be crucial." I spent the rest of Monday working with Detective Collins and the prosecutor's office to document every aspect of Derek's fraud, but I had a bigger plan forming. Instead of just defending myself legally, I decided to take control of the family situation by exposing Derek's lies comprehensively and protecting future victims. I hired a lawyer specializing in identity theft cases and a private investigator to document all of Derek's fraudulent activities. If Derek's addiction had truly driven him to systematic criminal behavior, our family needed to understand the full scope of his deception to protect ourselves going forward. Tuesday, I contacted all the family members Derek had victimized, starting with grandmother Helen. Her reaction broke my heart. "I knew something was wrong with my finances, dear, but I thought I was just getting confused in my old age. When my bank statement stopped making sense, I was too embarrassed to ask for help." Grandmother Helen had been living on Social Security alone for months, believing her retirement investments had simply failed. She'd been eating generic food and skipping medications to afford basic expenses, never realizing Derek had stolen her life savings. Aunt Patricia's story was equally tragic. She'd been working double shifts at the hospital, thinking her missing retirement money was due to market losses. The stress had been affecting her health, but she'd been too proud to admit financial struggles to the family. Wednesday evening, I called another family meeting at my apartment. The same space where Derek had brought criminals just 5 days earlier would now become the place where our family finally confronted the truth about his systematic deception. I invited everyone: parents, grandmother, aunt, cousins, and Jessica. I told them I had important information about Derek's situation that would affect everyone's financial future and personal safety. This time I controlled the narrative. This time the family would listen to me instead of dismissing my concerns as jealousy or selfishness. This time, Derek's lies would be exposed completely, and our family would have to choose between enabling his criminal behavior or protecting ourselves from further victimization. As I prepared evidence folders for each family member, I felt empowered in a way I'd never experienced. For 28 years, I'd been the responsible one who adapted to Derek's needs and accommodated his problems. Now I was the one with information, legal protection, and the power to save our family from Derek's systematic criminal activities. The housewarming party that nobody attended had been painful, but Derek's arrest had given me something more valuable than family approval: the knowledge that I could stand up for myself and others when necessary, even if it meant challenging the fundamental dynamics that had defined our relationships my entire life. Wednesday evening, my apartment filled with family members for the second time since I'd moved in. But unlike the missed housewarming party, this gathering carried weight and urgency that demanded attention. I'd arranged chairs in a circle around my coffee table with evidence folders waiting for each person. The same floor-to-ceiling windows that had showcased my celebration now framed a much more serious conversation about our family's future. Grandmother Helen arrived first, supported by Aunt Patricia, both looking frail and worried. My parents came next, Linda still maintaining defensive posture about Derek, while Robert appeared resigned to hearing difficult truths. Marcus and Tiffany looked confused but concerned. Jessica was the last to arrive, visibly pregnant and clearly exhausted from the stress of Derek's arrest and the media attention surrounding the loan shark investigation. "Thank you all for coming." I began standing before the group. "I know this has been an overwhelming week, but we need to discuss Derek's situation honestly so we can protect ourselves and make informed decisions about our family's future." Linda immediately interrupted. "We don't need to discuss anything except how to help Derek through this difficult time. He made some mistakes, but family supports family during crisis." Mom, Derek didn't make mistakes. Derek committed systematic fraud against his own family members for over a year. Everyone in this room has been victimized by his criminal activities. I handed out evidence folders containing documentation Detective Collins had provided copies of forged signatures, fraudulent loan applications, identity theft records, bank statements showing stolen money, and police reports detailing Derek's criminal charges. Grandmother Helen opened her folder first, studying the documents with growing alarm. "These signatures look like mine, but I never signed these papers." "Derek forged your signature to take out a second mortgage on your house, Grandma. He also made unauthorized withdrawals from your retirement account. You've been living on Social Security alone because Derek stole your life savings." The elderly woman began crying quietly as the reality sank in. "I thought I was losing my memory. I couldn't understand why my money was disappearing." Aunt Patricia examined her own folder, her face growing pale. "This shows withdrawals from my retirement account that I never authorized. $47,000 over 8 months. Derek accessed your account information during family gatherings and created fraudulent authorization documents," I explained. "The extra shifts you've been working at the hospital weren't covering market losses. You were trying to replace money Derek had stolen." Marcus and Tiffany discovered that Derek had applied for credit cards using their personal information, running up debt in their names, while making minimum payments to avoid detection. Both had noticed mysterious credit inquiries, but assumed they were identity theft from unknown criminals. Derek used information from all of us to fund his gambling addiction and cover loan shark payments. I continued. When that wasn't enough, he started stealing from his employer's client accounts. He was fired 3 weeks ago for embezzling $47,000. Jessica spoke for the first time, her voice barely audible. Derek told me he got a promotion and was pursuing business opportunities with his bonus money. There was no promotion, no bonus, no business opportunity. Derek's been unemployed for weeks while telling everyone he was developing an app with Stanford connections. The Silicon Valley meetings were fiction. The venture capital partners don't exist. I pulled out the final piece of evidence, Derek's text messages to Ryan, documenting his desperation and systematic planning to manipulate me into funding his debt payments. Derek specifically researched my financial situation for months, calculating how much money he could extract if he convinced the family to pressure me into selling my apartment. This wasn't desperate decision-making. This was calculated manipulation, targeting the family member he thought would be most likely to sacrifice personal assets for family harmony. Linda had been growing increasingly agitated as evidence mounted. "You're making Derek sound like a criminal mastermind. He's a good person with an addiction problem who needs help, not prosecution." Derek is a good person with an addiction problem who also committed serious crimes against people who loved him, I corrected. Those two things can both be true simultaneously. Robert finally spoke up. "Ava, what you're describing isn't just addiction behavior. This is systematic theft and fraud targeting vulnerable family members." Exactly. And if Derek's addiction made him capable of stealing grandmother Helen's retirement money and forging Aunt Patricia's financial documents, what prevents him from escalating to even worse crimes in the future? Jessica made a decision that surprised everyone. "I'm leaving Derek. I'm filing for divorce and moving back to my parents' house in Kansas City. I won't raise my child around someone capable of stealing from his own grandmother." Linda looked horrified. "Jessica, you can't abandon Derek when he needs support most. He's facing criminal charges. This is when family needs to rally around him." Family rallies around people who make mistakes, not people who systematically victimize their own relatives, Jessica replied firmly. "Derek put my unborn child in danger by borrowing money from criminals. He lied to me about losing his job, about gambling, about everything. I can't trust him to prioritize our family's safety over his addiction." The room fell silent as Jessica's words sank in. Even Linda seemed to recognize that Derek's behavior had consequences beyond family disappointment. Grandmother Helen spoke next, her voice stronger than before. "I want Derek to face consequences for what he did to me. I won't press charges because he's my grandson, but I won't enable his behavior by pretending this was just a mistake." Aunt Patricia nodded agreement. "Derek stole my retirement security. I can't work forever, and now I have to rebuild savings in my 60s because my own nephew betrayed my trust." Over the following hour, each family member shared their perspective on Derek's actions and their decision about supporting him through legal consequences. The unanimous conclusion was devastating for Linda, but necessary for everyone's future safety. Derek needed to face full consequences for his criminal behavior without family intervention. 6 months later, Derek accepted a plea bargain involving 3 years in federal prison restitution payments to all victims and mandatory addiction treatment. The loan shark investigation led to arrests of a larger criminal network, with Derek's cooperation helping prosecutors build cases against dangerous criminals who had threatened our family. But the real transformation was emotional. Our family began attending counseling sessions to address the enabling patterns that had allowed Derek's behavior to escalate unchecked. We learned to distinguish between supporting someone through difficulties and protecting them from consequences of harmful choices. Grandmother Helen moved into a beautiful senior living community near my apartment, where she received proper care and social interaction while maintaining her independence. Her stolen money was gradually recovered through Derek's restitution payments and victim compensation funds. Aunt Patricia took early retirement with dignity, supported by family contributions that didn't require anyone to sacrifice their own financial security. She deserved to enjoy her remaining years without working extra shifts to replace money stolen by her own nephew. My parents learned to have honest conversations about their children's achievements and problems without automatically protecting Derek from accountability or expecting me to accommodate his needs. Robert apologized for years of unequal treatment, acknowledging that their fear of Derek's potential failures had created a family dynamic that enabled his worst behaviors. Jessica successfully divorced Derek and moved to Kansas City, where she gave birth to a healthy daughter. She occasionally sent photos to the family, but maintained clear boundaries about Derek's involvement in their child's life until he completed addiction treatment and demonstrated sustained recovery. 1 year after my missed housewarming party, I hosted another celebration in my apartment. This time, family members attended genuinely not out of obligation or manipulation, but from authentic desire to celebrate my achievements and enjoy each other's company. As I stood by my floor-to-ceiling windows watching relatives laugh and share stories in the space I'd worked so hard to afford, I reflected on the profound life lesson this experience had taught me. Real love doesn't require self-destruction to prove loyalty. Healthy families celebrate individual success rather than demanding sacrifice for collective dysfunction. My apartment had become more than just my dream home. It represented proof that standing up for yourself, even when others call it selfish, sometimes saves everyone you love. By refusing to enable Derek's lies and protecting myself from his crimes, I'd helped my family escape a pattern of manipulation that was destroying everyone. Derek's addiction had been a family crisis, but his criminal behavior had been a personal choice. The difference between those two things determined whether our family could heal and grow together or continue enabling destructive patterns that hurt everyone involved. True family doesn't ask you to diminish yourself to make others comfortable with their failures. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in someone's self-destruction, even when they're family, even when others pressure you to help, even when standing firm feels cruel. My housewarming party that nobody attended had been painful, but it led to discoveries that saved my family from much worse consequences. Sometimes the celebrations you have alone teach you more about your strength than the ones surrounded by applause from people who don't truly understand your journey. As I raised a glass of champagne to toast genuine family connection built on honesty rather than enabling, I realized that some victories are worth celebrating alone until others are ready to join you in truth rather than comfortable lies. I hope this story inspires you to think about the relationships in your own life. Have you ever found yourself expected to sacrifice your dreams to enable someone else's destructive behavior? How do you balance family loyalty with personal boundaries? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like this video if Derek's story resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life family stories, and share this with anyone who might need to hear about the difference between supporting loved ones and enabling harmful behavior. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to celebrate your own achievements, even when others aren't ready to join the celebration.